very much, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the F-Type launch.
So first off, we found that it's really helpful to kind of set the stage for what is it that the open source BIRT developer gets today when they build out a BIRT-based visualization application. And that's a way that we can kind of compare and contrast with the F-Type and the instant benefit that it brings to this content. So we're currently looking at the open source BIRT development environment downloaded from Eclipse. It's a perspective for Eclipse. What basically it is an environment which is very easy to simply drag and drop in an assembly format and create visualizations against your enterprise data by simply dragging over things like crosstabs, charts, tables, arranging them onto a page, which is then output as these online documents, which are highly informative, highly visual. In this case, they're summarizing multiple data sources. As Pete said, we have a distinction of being able to join disparate sources and deliver it out in this very useful format. So for example, we have pagination. We have contextual drill down. I can click on any one of these product lines and go straight to details. Thing is that this content, while informative, is not terribly interactive. And as we find when we start building content for especially a customer-facing application where the customers can be consumers on the street, they're being kind of conditioned by interactive websites, especially social sites. So what they really want to do is kind of be able to interact with and set their information. So let's actually take a look at a piece of content that's a candidate for the F-Type. Okay, so I'm still purely in open source with my BIRT design environment. And let's say that I'm a developer here at Horizon Wireless, and we're starting to create an information portal for our corporate customers. We're going to provide them some online visualizations that they can use to keep track of usage across their organization. Again, being delivered as BIRT content, so we've got nice visuals, pagination, contextual drill down. I can click on any one of our departments and go straight to more granular levels of information. But we've run this past our focus groups, and they say, wow, that's great, but I'd really rather be able to kind of pick and choose what shows up on the screen. I want to be able to change the formatting, maybe change the grouping, things of that nature. Not uncommon requests for many web applications these days. Coincidental to that, as the BIRT developer, I'm using pure open source. So what I don't have the advantage of is a deployment environment at my disposal. So anything that I want to build in, like efficiencies such as scheduling, run this stuff and refresh data on a regular basis, or secure it, make sure that certain people can't see it who are not entitled to, I have to build that. I have to go in and actually program that kind of thing. Until F-Type. So now I have a freely available industrial strength server that I can use to actually deploy this content. In that environment, we've created an RPT design. This is that RPT design we just saw. This is the candidate. So we also, Pete said, we try and make the first 15-minute experience as impactful as absolutely possible for the user so that we can actually see how to gain instant value from this amazing deployment mechanism. So we pick up just after I've installed it, and I'm logging in for the very first time. And bearing in mind that we're making sure that we're trying to accommodate the existing open source developer, we shake their hand and greet them with an invitation. Please upload your existing content. So here we have an RPT design. So I can actually choose that. It's kind of an intriguing thing. Wow, they know I have existing content. I'll choose to upload that. Incidentally, for anybody in here who installs the F-Type doesn't have already existing content, we don't want you to be dead-ended. So we provide sample content so you can still go through this tutorial process and realize the benefit that this amazing environment will bring to your application. So now I'm going to choose to upload that content, and because the F-Type is inherently based upon BIRT, it inherently understands a BIRT design. So it interrogates this design, and it tells me there are still some required resources that I need to run this. So another hallmark of BIRT-based applications is reusable resources, components that can be used from application to application. And this content that we're looking at is no different. It has reusable components in libraries. So how nice of the F-Type to tell me that it knows I need these additional elements in order to run this properly. So I simply drag them over, pull it in, and now I'm given the green light. I can actually run this content. So let's see and contrast it with its previously more static presentation. So I think you all agree, instantly it's come to life. So in fact, rather than turn our developer loose on files and folders and expect them to discover all of these features, we've put together a novel approach. This is an approach where we hold the hand of the developer through the first and what we think most important features are to that individual or to any application. So here we see, as Pete mentioned, we have 5 that we start with. These are just the tip of the iceberg of what the F-Type can actually do. But we find that these are the features that are most desired by the open source developer, and again, they either have to do without an open source or build it themselves or integrate with a third party. So what we're here to say is you can actually achieve interactivity, scheduling, sharing, Excel, and seamless integration entirely for free. So as such, this tutorial loads our content into the window in the middle and also introduces these features as buttons on the side. So all we have to do to walk through and learn about these features is click on an individual button. We're then introduced to the feature. We get a little bit of background. We have some additional resources that we can look at. But in this case, this is interactivity. We're being invited to actually interact with our previously static content. So for example, we've got a 31-page document. Notice that when I was in open source BIRT, I couldn't do things like interacting with our visualization or filtering on that visualization. These are things that become instant and inherent when we move into the commercial environment. But we also like to emphasize interactivity does a lot more than allow for people the novelty of changing charts and things of that nature. It actually allows them to go in and ask questions, almost free-form questions against their content. So as I bring up the menu, you can see there's a host of different things that I can actually bring to bear here. You can group, you can create calculated columns, you can aggregate, you can sort, you can align and format all of this content. And again, remember, its previous presentation was such that none of this was possible. And ultimately, you know, things to do, requests to do simple things like filter down to my top 25 charges would result in a new content request back to our poor overburdened developer. So instead, I've been able to answer that immediately. Look at that. I've gone from 30 pages down to 2. Very specific. I've asked it a question, and I get back that focus. And I can see it looks like the Smart Unlimited plan is my most expensive. Pretty hefty charges and overages there. Notice also that the chart has stayed in part and parcel with the rest of the table. So I also pointed out there was a crosstab on that second page. Crosstab visualizations are also interactive. Because all of the data within this particular report is encapsulated in this document, and the F-Type exposes that data. In this case, if I want to change my crosstab visualization, all I have to do is click to analyze, and I'm brought into this interactive pivot interface. And this is all of the data, again, encapsulated in that report design. So in this case, I'm looking at plans by office. Maybe I'd also like to incorporate my department. So I'll just simply drop that right into place. The visualization changes. I spotted one of my more expensive plans driving costs up, so we can focus this crosstab down to that. And sort of the list goes on. The user can continue to change, fine-tune, and organize their information to meet the needs, the things that they want to see. So interactivity, allowing for the user to answer those questions they hadn't actually already considered when they first got the content. And in a static environment, they would have been stuck. Another great benefit for the developer is giving this kind of interactivity to the end user allows them to answer these questions for themselves. It doesn't go back into my inbox as a new report request. Interactivity. Pretty cool, huh? And remember that I didn't have to do anything in the development environment. It just came to life by virtue of putting it onto the F-Type. So next is the capability for scheduling. Scheduling seems conceptually very simple until you consider it from the perspective of a developer. So if I want to manage this content and automate it so that I don't have to come and manually run it and refresh it and rehydrate it with new data, what do I have to do? Well, that could actually be kind of non-trivial if we had to program things like, you know, complex schedules in here. But with the F-Type, we get this right out of the box. I can set up a schedule. I can specify a window of time through which it should go and then expire. And we could say run every Saturday, run every day, skip Arbor Day, skip Christmas. Any kind of schedule you can possibly imagine can be achieved on the F-Type. So full automation, and you don't have to go through the trouble of trying to code in something that doesn't do nearly as much as the F-Type does right out of the box. So next is sharing. So sharing is indicative of security. So the F-Type, the iHub, which is the underpinning of the F-Type, has a long legacy, a long history of being one of the most secure environments out there. BIRT applications are running at the biggest banks in the world, even at the SEC, where security is paramount. So this goes beyond simply saying, I'm going to share this document with Pete. This is saying you can actually specify who can see what content and what they can do with it at a community level for users and groups and individuals. So it creates this kind of autonomous self-service environment where users can share things with other users of the application community. One of the things that we are very proud of is the fact that the sharing and security is very granular. You can actually say entire groups of community of users can run things while they can't share them, or other users can view things while they can't generate them and incur overhead, things of this nature. So very granular level of security is, can easily be achieved. So Pete talked about also Excel. We're really, really proud of the Excel support that we bring to the table. And this is because, I mean, we've recognized just about any visualization tool out there says, oh, we support Excel. But when you look under the covers, generally what you find is Excel support is limited to comma-separated value output loaded into rows and columns in a spreadsheet. But when users of an application say, I want an Excel document, they don't want rows and columns. They want formulas, pivot tables, formatting, charts. And that's exactly what the F-Type gives you from any and all BIRT content. So in this case, bearing in mind the changes that I've made in this document through interactivity, let's open it up in Excel. So that's not rows and columns. That has the same formatting, in fact, as the report that we were just looking at online. That crosstab that was on the second page has been pushed over into Excel as a live pivot table, as we see by the field list here. And probably the first thing that any Excel user looks for whenever we show this feature is, where's my formulas? So we're here to tell you, there's your formulas right there. And this is what makes this Excel document so valuable to the users who require it, is such that you can type new values in, and the formulaic values instantly reflect those changes. So it becomes a what-if vehicle for those users. That's why they want their Excel. So a lot of visualization efforts and application efforts trying to discourage Excel. The F-Type is here to say, don't discourage it, encourage it, and keep control over it, and give people exactly what they want. Incidentally, I didn't have to do anything to that design in the design environment to enable this. Yet just another benefit of instant benefit of going onto the F-Type. So next is the ability to seamlessly integrate. So in fact, it's kind of very common for our customers that they don't use our out-of-the-box portal, even though it's very nice and looks great. They instead take advantage of these very powerful integration APIs that we offer, one of which is the JavaScript API. So the JavaScript API goes beyond simply taking a snapshot of a chart and embedding it into a web page as an image. The JavaScript API is vast and granular and very powerful. So it maintains security, and it maintains interactivity, and it maintains the entire personalization aspect of this embedded content. To help drive this point home for our developer, we pop it open in our wizard in this little integrate window. This is an introduction to the API. And anybody in here who does web programming probably recognizes this concept. We've borrowed it from JS Fiddle. And it's a concept that says you can actually have working JavaScript code, in this case generated on the fly, to integrate our content. And right next to it, you see the output, the result of that code. So it's actually giving me a head start for my own integration. I can cut, copy, and paste this directly into my own app. But it's also live content, so that we can use it to play around. So the code's not showing up too bright, but one thing that I hope you can see here is that one of the options is Enable Toolbar. And I've got this integrated and embedded content, but I can only see the first page. Well, that's because the toolbar is turned to false. But this being a malleable environment that we want to make sure ingratiates itself to our developer, all we have to do is type in different toggles for these options and see the output and the effect instantly. So now you can see I've got all 31 pages of my document. It's entirely interactive, just as we saw earlier. So when you embed BIRT content, you get the full benefit of what the F-Type and the iHub is deploying. You're not just embedding pictures to your website in an iframe. Way beyond that. So the benefit here is that it also is working on ubiquitous skill sets. It's just JavaScript. No 4GL that needs to be learned, no proprietary code needs to be brought to bear. So again, the 5 features that we feel are the drivers for most open source implementations to consider commercial offerings. To be able to achieve them, we're saying you don't have to buy a thing. Just get the F-Type, download it, and you're starting to work with this stuff instantly. And as I exit this tutorial, we can actually see the iHub in its purest form. So it's a file and folder-based repository where you can set up, specify, and secure all of the content and further schedule it and automate it. In fact, here's the Horizon Wireless Annual Summary. This is what we uploaded moments ago via the wizard. And as I bring up the menu, you can see how on a day-to-day basis, application users would leverage those features that we just saw. So here's scheduling, for example. Here's sharing. So again, creating that autonomous self-service community that allows for the users to kind of proliferate, share content amongst themselves, and evolve the application. Because we're monitoring and metering the usage, we provide a gas meter, if you will, a gauge, so that you can see exactly where you happen to be in terms of consumption. So you can pop that open and at any time see exactly where you're at. And we give you 2 exceptions to run over the initial amount. Notice that I've actually got a significant amount of capacity here. Well, that's because it's so easy to upgrade. All I had to do was click the upgrade button, went in to the page, chose the option that worked for me, got an email with a code in it, and then I just simply paste the code directly back into the usage and registration window and hit apply. And I saw that megabyte number jump right back up. I mean, you don't even have to stop working to add capacity. You just keep on going. So easy. And then when we bring to bear, lastly, but wait, there's more. As I finish up, this is the iHub, after all. And the iHub, we keep saying, does an awful lot more. So when you bring to bear also the commercial version of the BIRT Design environment, that's the Actuate BIRT Designer Professional, you can then create BIRT visualizations, BIRT content with some additional attributes and additional features. And you can publish them to this same environment as a collection of assets that can then be presented as an application to users. So for example, here we see kind of a more classic dashboard. The dashboards on the F-Type have the distinction of being context sensitive, so we can go in and say, I want to see only these particular account types, only this call severity. Visualizations themselves are inherently aware of things like hierarchies in your data. As well, they allow you to do things like drill out to BIRT reports. And then lastly, you can also achieve additional types of visualizations, such as geospatial. Here we see a map. This is a map that's been created within the commercial BIRT Designer environment. But again, that process of building out commercial content is exactly the same as in the open source environment, because it's the same technology with value-add features on top. So with that, hopefully I've given you a good overview of the F-Type and the power that it brings, especially to those of you out there working with open source BIRT. Bring that stuff to life. Give your users exactly what they want, and reduce the burden on yourself for report requests and programming for features that you can get for free by downloading the F-Type. And it's been my pleasure. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Mark.